People I trust. Adam Schefter said teams are going to call the Vikings on J.J. McCarthy. Of course they are. He's talented, and it's a terrible quarterback draft, and 7 teams need a quarterback. Diana Rossini reports the Vikings want Darnold back. Of course they do. He's got an argument to be MVP. And Darnold doesn't even turn 28 until down the road. So it's like Darnold's in his prime for 5 years. So J.J. McCarthy, Michigan quarterback, was the one quarterback I wasn't sold on in this draft. He was 53rd in pass attempts his last year in college. In the same number of games, Michael Penix was number 1. I thought Penix threw a better ball. Bo Nix was more experienced and more athletic. I thought Caleb and Jaden Daniels were better, and I thought Drake May had a higher ceiling. He could work. He was kind of good in the preseason. What does that mean? Dak looked great in the preseason. Dak's talented. Dak's a starter. But has Dak ever had a year that looks like Darnold? Not to me. And so this is something to remember. Why did the Minnesota Vikings in November bring in Daniel Jones? Why? Because maybe they were ahead of us. The Vikings don't have a second-round pick, a third-round pick, or a fourth-round pick. It's a terrible quarterback class. Seattle, you think they're going to go back with Geno Smith again? They can get J.J. McCarthy for a second and a fourth, maybe a second, fourth, and fifth. Vikings get their draft picks. They're franchise tagging at minimum Sam Darnold. Kevin O'Connell liked Sam Darnold before he was a Viking. Kyle Shanahan liked Darnold before he was a Niner. Now he's putting up an MVP season. They've made a decision. We like Darnold. We're not letting him go. Why did they bring in Daniel Jones? Because they wanted to get him into the system, ready to play for a playoff game. And my take, they'll rehab Daniel Jones like they rehabbed Sam Darnold. And I think J.J. McCarthy is good enough in a weak quarterback draft class to fetch you multiple picks, which if you're in the NFC North, stacked Green Bay roster, stacked Detroit roster, Chicago's going to get their act together. You need draft picks. If you're paying Sam Darnold big boy money, you need draft picks. Vikings don't have any. They got a first and a couple of fifths. They don't have any draft picks. Seattle's drafting 18th. They need a quarterback because they got a Super Bowl roster. I totally get Seattle saying, we're going to have to start paying some of these stars we have. Let's roll it with J.J. McCarthy. If I ran Seattle, John Snyder, I'd make the deal tomorrow. I'd make the deal tomorrow. Reset the clock. J.J. McCarthy, don't have to pay him for 4 years. With this Seattle talented roster, where in about a year, you're going to have to start paying people big boy money.
All right. So there's a lot to unpack here. And let's get right to it. So first off, you get someone like a Daniel Jones for multiple reasons. One, when you are as great of a coach, especially a quarterback whisperer as Kevin O'Connell, getting another top pick, especially if someone like Kevin O'Connell is looking and seeing what he sees and says, yeah, I can do stuff with that. You're going to want that because at the bare minimum, you see how great your roster is right now. You see how great your team is right now. You get Daniel Jones just as a backup quarterback, just in case anything happens to Sam Darnold. It's just good business to have because you now have a truly established quarterback who has played in the NFL for years. He's going to be better than your current backup quarterback, even if it's not even 100% written that way right now. Like I don't know if Daniel Jones. I assume Daniel Jones is probably still technically considered the third string. I would not be shocked if something crazy happened to Sam Darnold in the middle of a playoff game. If you do go to Daniel Jones, Daniel Jones has been there. He's been in the playoffs. He's just has way more experience. Not to mention, if Kevin O'Connell's assessment is accurate, then Daniel Jones should be another starter, right? It will maybe not have the exact same trajectory as a Sam Darnold who has completely reinvented himself, but still clearly there's something there with Daniel Jones. Again, I'm not saying that he's going to be a top 10 quarterback, but there's still something. He's still shown that he can kind of be a quarterback in the NFL. That's how he's lasted this long and has even gotten the amount of money that he got paid. So I think it's just good business if you can get that quarterback for nothing. Like you do it. It's like I said, it's just a good business move. Now, in terms of the whole thing with J.J. McCarthy, right, of course, teams are going to be inquiring about J.J. He's a top pick in the draft last year, and did have a great preseason moment, but it is preseason, and so you do have to put it in context. But that is still the last that we saw of him, and everybody was like over the moon excited. Couldn't be more happier. But this is where you do have to look at where your team is. When you look at professional sports as a whole, and especially the NFL and basketball for that matter, you got to figure out where your team is. Is your team ready to win now? Where is the bulk of your players that are doing the most damage, the most production for your team? Are they in their prime? Are they about to enter their prime? Are they at the edge of their prime and they're going to be leaving soon? Like it's a mixed bag. In an NFL team, you kind of want a little bit of everything. You want some of that youth. You need some of those seasoned veterans. You need some of those veterans who are like, really more glorified leaders than anything. And then you need some guys that are like, we are 100%. This is as good as it's going to get for me. I got 2-year window of me being at my peak powers. Let's get after it. And it's a delicate dance. And it's a delicate dance. And we know that these young quarterbacks, it takes a minute or two. JJ McCarthy is 21 years old. He's 21 years old. It takes time. And when you have a roster that's clearly good enough to be a first place team in the NFL, the number one seed, a first round bye, you have a team by definition that is ready to win right now. Right now. And next year, and most likely the year after. You don't got time to play games with developing a quarterback. You just don't. You don't. I mean, it takes a minute. It just is. And so you have to you have to weigh that out. And if you already have potentially another great top quarterback on your roster, it's like, why? Why would, it's like, why would you even do that? So this is a fascinating thing. And so many people are like, I want to see Sam Darnold do it again. If Kevin O'Connell is saying this is what I want, then that's what you trust. Kevin O'Connell is the one that's making this happen. And yeah, if he says, you know what, let's move on from J.J. McCarthy, you will get some great draft capital, which will then continue to help build your team and make this team even better, even deeper, even potentially more dominant. There's no reason to believe that Sam Darnold is playing this well and that it is just an outlier, that he's just going to magically regress and be bad next year. There's zero reason to believe that. The past is not an indicator of that. The past is an indicator of him not being on good enough teams with good enough coaching. That's what that's an indicator of. Not that this year is an outlier and that those other years were who he truly was. That's not how growth works. It's like, when I was in 3rd grade, I wasn't very good at long division. All right. Then as I got older, I became better at math. Does that mean that those years in the past were me just proof that I'm actually just really not that good, and that now that I reached a certain age that it's more of an outlier? No, this is growth and development. Growth and development. Sam Darnold is young. So you can keep JJ if you want, potentially. Keep him on the back burner for a couple years, right? Do what the Packers did with Jordan Love. But the difference is that Aaron Rodgers was already like 35, 36 or I mean, like he was already at the end. Clearly. That's not the case with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold, if all things go well, at a minimum, will have another 5 years of his prime. And that's your Super Bowl window. You don't have a 10-year, 15-year Super Bowl window. It's just not the way it works. It's just not the way it works. So right now, the Minnesota Vikings are looking most realistically, and it could potentially extend, but you have to just think like as realistic and small as possible. 2-year window right now. 3-year window. Like that's on, because again, you have to be, we know how good Justin Jefferson is. What are the odds of him staying 100% healthy over the next couple of years? I mean, it's probably technically not good because it's football. So you have everyone for the most part, right? We already know what it was like to lose, players to injury. So you never exactly know. So that's why you are looking at it right now. When you have a team that can win right now, you do. You go for it. You don't mess around. You don't play games. You go for it. You don't know what can change in any given moment. You don't know what happens to this defense when Brian Flores goes somewhere else, if he does. You just don't know. You don't know who gets injured next year or who doesn't. So that's why you have to look at it on a short time frame. You can't be like, oh, well, J.J. McCarthy could be great, 2 years from now, 3 years from now. Maybe. We know Sam Darnold's great right now. And this is where I just encourage the fans to trust the staff, trust the coaching. At the end of the day, if you're a big Minnesota Vikings fan, you should have way more trust in Kevin O'Connell than anyone else. More than Sam, more than JJ, more than any of these other players. Like, if Kevin O'Connell says, I want Sam Darnold back, and you know what? We can move on from JJ. I'm comfortable with what we're doing here. You trust it. Your offensive head coach is the foundation of your team when you're that good of a coach. When you're Sean McVay, Andy Reid, Kevin O'Connell, Shanahan, like, that's who you're trusting. That's who you're trusting. You're trusting that offensive head coach to lead you to victory. They're the ones that ultimately are going to know, can I win with this quarterback? Yes or no? Do we need to draft a quarterback? Do we need to move on? Is it okay to let go of this quarterback and move on with this quarterback? That's who you have to trust. It's not going to say that it's going to be a 100% hit rate, but at the end of the day, you have to put your faith and trust in someone as a fan. You don't have any control. I don't have any control. This isn't where we get to vote. Hey, all the fans get to place their vote. You have to put your trust somewhere. And I just encourage you to, in Kevin O'Connell, you trust. Like, that's what it has to get boiled down to. I doubt that they would move on from JJ if Kevin O'Connell didn't say yes. I doubt if Kevin O'Connell's like, no, I want to keep JJ. And the ownership and GM's like, no, we're going to move on from him. And he's like, no, I really don't think that's a good idea. And they're like, we don't care what you think, Kevin. Move on. Like, I just can't see that happening. I just don't see that happening. Which I think is a great place to be in as a Minnesota Vikings fan. To have a coach who's obviously intelligent, successful, high level, and can get to work. Because people are saying, like, oh, look what Kevin O'Connell did with Sam Darnold. What could he do with JJ? JJ will be his, will be his project. And it's like, well, it's up to Kevin O'Connell. What he believes. What he thinks is possible. What he thinks is, where the potential lies. So I'm excited to see where this falls. Because I'm excited to watch Kevin O'Connell continue to kind of pull those strings. The same way how I was excited to see what happened with Andy Reid when he had Alex Smith and then moved on from Alex Smith and got Patrick Mahomes. Like, it's the process. McVay being in there with Goff saying, I cannot win with Goff today. Maybe tomorrow, maybe the year after, but today I can't. He got Matthew Stafford and he won a Super Bowl. And it was the right move. It was the right move. They had the roster that was clearly capable of winning it all. And they did. I mean, they needed to make extra moves, which I've talked about as well. But that's what it is. Heck, you could make the argument that if Aaron Rodgers didn't get hurt, that's why this is a tough one. If Aaron Rodgers didn't get hurt, and if he wasn't so difficult to work with, which he obviously is, from a pure talent perspective, pure talent, nothing else. If he didn't get hurt and he was just easier to work with, you can make the argument that if he was the quarterback for the Packers, especially, last year, if he was still healthy and still at least was a semblance of who he was as a quarterback, the Packers would have maybe been in a better situation. Having a true seasoned veteran lead that team. I mean, with Aaron, they got to the NFC Championship game. They were able to get there. Again, this is not a perfect example because of Aaron obviously getting injured, aging, as well as just, again, not easy to work with, not easy to coach. But sometimes moving on isn't always the right decision, is what I'm saying, at least from a purely talent perspective. Pure talent. So, yeah. I'm genuinely excited to see how this all unfolds. Honestly, I really, really am. I think it's going to be fascinating. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Minnesota Vikings wanting to keep Sam Darnold and potentially move on from JJ? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.